Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based wedding and event photographer Tavishima Ayede. I'm sure you noticed from the sound quality that I'm not recording in my usual space today, and that's because I happen to be out and about. I'm on the road for the burial of my cousin that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, much earlier in the year when we started with the recordings for the new year. Anyway, so the burial is over and done now, and coincidentally, while chatting with another vendor, that's Isioma of Miss to Mrs. Bridals. I hope I got the order of the name correct. It turns out that she lost her mom recently, I think within the last 3 or maybe 4 weeks. So it turns out that there are a few of us who have been recently bereaved in the new year. And I guess statistically speaking, I guess these things are bound to happen. So as we're listening to this episode, for those of you who are not in the same boat as we are, I would like to ask that you extend your thoughts and your prayers to the families of those who have been recently deceased at the start of the new year, asking for God's grace, His guidance, and for Him to watch over the family and grant them the ability to bear the loss of their loved ones. And on a lighter note, I would also like to implore for those of you who, even if it's not a matter of death within the family, who may have received some not too pleasant news so early in the year, I would like to ask that we don't let this outlook, we don't let this occurrence cover our outlook for the whole year. So let's trust in God's providence and His grace, and we still do our best to make 2021 a very good year for us, not just personally, but also professionally and business-wise. Okay, so now on to the topic of recording for today. It's still on the case studies, the sessions that we did with Godwin of G Powers. And at some point in our discussion, when it came to when we're on the topic of finding customers who can afford what it is that he sells, that is solar panels, inverters, and alternative energy solutions. Excuse me. So eventually, we got to the point where we discussed bank financing. Now, fortunately for him, bank financing is an option that's available in that industry, in this part of the world. And of course, other industries that can take advantage of that as well happen to be the car industry, because you can arrange bank financing for your vehicles. I mean, if you happen to be a seller and you're speaking to someone who wants to buy a vehicle, it's something that you can work out. Which bank do you bank with? Okay, it's GTB. Okay, they have these and that product that you can use to finance the vehicle on hire purchase terms or whatever terms. So that was also an option that we put on the table, although our boy Godwin was of the opinion that it's not too palatable for him because it involves quite a bit of paperwork, and eventually you set the paperwork down before the clients, and then they start coming up with one excuse or another why they can't go ahead, which is why, in my opinion, I thought the break in communication happened to be a qualifications process, and which is why we came up with the examples of the questioning framework that we can use to find out that we're speaking to people who think there's a significant problem that needs solving and are ready to take this step now. Okay, so bank financing. The reason why I'm bringing that up is sometimes I wonder if it's something that would be available and can be used by those of us who are wedding and event practitioners. Currently, I don't see that as the case because I don't know of any formalized banking structure where people can take out loans for things like getting married. In fact, there's some people who would say that those sorts of things are irresponsible, but fortunately, unfortunately, there was a time in our not too recent history, back when I was in secondary school, where these sorts of things were available, even though I didn't know anyone who took advantage of it personally. The reason why I remembered was because there was a time when I was in secondary school, and my mom wanted to take out a loan from one of the banks, and at the time it was tied to cash flow problems, of course. But bottom line is that was supposed to tide over school fees until things became a little bit more regular, and of course the loan application for that was denied, even though the bank at the time was one of the big national banks who advertised in their dailies about products that were aimed at female customers, but unfortunately were limited to, I think, makeup, dresses, and beauty treatments, spas, those sorts of things. Anyway, needless to say, the campaign suffered a lot of backlash for obvious reasons, because you had women who would want to access loans for different reasons, like let's say my mom wanted to pay school fees, or other people who wanted to pursue legitimate business interests but who couldn't do so because those were not the terms of the loan, and so the thing got cancelled. So, bottom line is, you never know. That opportunity might swing round again, where people might be able to use bank financing for personal matters such as getting married. I'm not saying you should take advantage of this, and I'm not endorsing this kind of behavior. I'm just letting you guys know, listening to the podcast, that it's not such an impossibility as we might seem, that one day we might be in the same position of people who are in the equipment, the motor business, basically other businesses where people can use bank financing as tools to move the sale along, so that when people get to the money objection, it's too much, I can't afford it, blah blah blah, let me talk to my husband, my wife, you would now be able to come back saying, okay, this is a way that you can afford it, because if you apply to this bank and that bank, and we're looking at this interest rate and that interest rate at these payment terms, we'll be able to stagger out the payment at this and this and this amount per month or per year or whatever. So bottom line, just think about it, even though at this point it may seem like a far-fetched idea. So if you happen to be in the wedding and the event space exclusively, and this might not be an option, just be aware that for the other businesses that you're involved in, so let's say you're a wedding planner, but you also happen to import and sell cars on the side, just know that these sorts of things are available. So speak to your banker. If you're a GTB person, call up GTB, Zenith Bank, whoever. You never know. Call your relationship or community manager, and you might be able to find that they have these sorts of schemes available, that if people want to buy cars through you and are willing to open an account with the new bank, maybe a salary account or something like that, that flexible payment terms can be offered. So just bear that in mind if you have other hustles beside being in the wedding and the event space. So that was just the interesting idea or interesting scenario that I wanted to share with you guys basically today. So since I'm out on the road, I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to record regularly. So I might be away for another 3 or 4 days, and then we'll be back on our regular scheduled programming. Since I don't have my diary with me, I can't remember what we're supposed to talk about next, but I'll do my best to make sure that it's something valuable, with loads of tips, tricks, and new philosophies and perspectives about selling and communicating with our customers, so that we can make more money in 2021. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. Thank you guys for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode.